Hi, I'm Karen, and you're watching Catching Up with Karen Mom Talk. Today's episode is going to be a little different. It's going to be dedicated to exclusive pumpers, and I will be interviewing Pump Mama Pump. Are you ready?
I am ready when you are.
Okay, perfect. So I have my questions up, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, hi. My name is Melissa Guerrero, and I run Pump Mama Pump on Instagram. I am a mother of 2 little pumplings. I exclusively pumped for 11 months with my son, and I have a 1-month-old daughter, and I'm exclusively pumping for her as well. I run my Instagram page to help not only exclusive pumping mamas, but any pumping mamas make the best out of what can be a pretty tough situation if they're not planning on pumping, or if they're nursing and transitioning to work and need to pump to transition back to work, or basically any mother who needs to use a breast pump ever.
Well, I absolutely love your page. I'm always learning something new every day. So I'm hoping that with this video, others can get all that information all in one video and know to follow you for daily info updates. So,
yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. So what is an exclusively pumping mother?
The term exclusive pumping is used when a mother only pumps and feeds her baby breast milk via bottle. Now, sometimes there is a nursing mother who pumps, like I said, going back to work. Sometimes there are nursing or pumping mothers who supplement with formula. All that's awesome, you know, feed the baby. But the term exclusive pumping is a mother that does not directly nurse, but pumps the breast milk instead.
Okay. So what should their pumping schedule look like?
Well, an exclusive pumping mother who doesn't directly nurse at all really needs to be on a pretty strict pumping schedule, because it's all about demand equaling supply. So just as a baby might nurse frequently to bring in the mother's milk and maintain her milk supply, you need to pump frequently to bring in your milk and maintain your milk supply. And this can be as frequent as every 2 to 3 hours, and that's for a 24-hour period at the beginning. And then as the months go, you could reduce your number of pumps per day.
And what about nursing mothers who pump? Should they be pumping after every nursing session or before, or what does that look like?
That's a great question. It's one that I recently addressed on my page. You want to nurse first, and it's not that you will run out of milk. Your breasts are continually producing more milk. If you've ever experienced like that feeling of a letdown, that is your alveoli and your ducts filling with milk. So that happens over and over again. It's not like you have a set supply and then you're going to run out at the end of the day. But you do want to give your baby that, I guess, first chance to get the milk. So you do want to nurse first, then wait. You know, you could wait anywhere from 5 minutes to a half an hour after you nurse to then hook up to the pump and hopefully get another letdown, and or get the remaining milk from the first letdown. It's different mother to mother. It depends. Some people experience multiple letdowns during a nursing session or during a pumping session. Some experience one letdown at the beginning and they have a larger capacity. That doesn't mean larger breasts. Larger capacity within the mammary glands of the breast, and they might only need that initial letdown to nurse the baby and then pump.
Oh, okay. And you did mention earlier how they have to pump every time to like mimic how often a baby eats. So when a baby is cluster feeding, I know that's relatively similar to power pumping. So what is power pumping and what does that look like?
Yes, power pumping does seek to mimic cluster feeding. It's not exactly the same, and it might not exactly have the same effect on the mother. Again, it varies mother to mother. But when you do a power pumping session, you're taking an hour. So you're replacing one of your pumps that might be 20 minutes, and you're doing an hour instead, not an hour straight pumping. You would pump for 20 minutes, turn off your pump. You can keep everything attached. Turn off your pump for 10, turn on for 10, off for 10, on for 10. So that sounds pretty involved, but all it is pumping for 20 minutes, rest, 10, rest, 10. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and mothers sometimes employ power pumping to see a little bit of an increase in their supply. And I always tell people to try it once a day for about a week to see if you do experience an increase in your supply overall. It might be a little bit, but it might be worth it.
Okay. So you are mentioning how it varies mother to mother. What about the mothers who say that they don't react to a pump? Is that a thing where they really won't experience a letdown if the pump is on, or is it just flange size, or what really goes into that?
There's actually a lot that goes into that. It's pretty rare that a mother will just not respond to any pump. There's many different kinds of pumps, and some are more of a hospital strength than other pumps. I personally use a Spectra S1. It's right here. Ta-da! There's my beloved Spectra. That's hospital strength, which means it's a bit stronger than, say, a Lanceno or Namita, just throwing other brands out there. It's even stronger than the S9, which I have right here too, which is the little Spectra one. So my body, for example, responds much better to my S1 than it does to my S9 because one is stronger than the other. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's like harder on my body. It's just got a really steady, strong suction that can keep up with the demands of exclusive pumping. So you want to make sure you have a good pump. And if you can, try different pumps. I know that's not possible for everyone, but your body might respond differently to a Spectra than it does to like say Medela Pump in Style Advance, which is another really, really popular pump. And as far as getting a letdown, I can't feel mine. I mean, I know what happens, but I can't feel it. Some mothers feel tingling or, I don't want to say pain, but like they're very aware of like their nipples.
Yeah.
And their breast kind of like momentarily filling, and that it might hurt. And some people have to kind of trick their body into having a letdown by listening to maybe a video they recorded on their phone of their baby crying.
I did hear about that.
Or even just a picture of their baby. Some people respond to the smell of their baby. They'll actually take the baby's pajamas to work with them. Nipple stimulation. I can actually feel my letdown with, I don't have it here, with my Medela hand pump. Because I guess that's like a more targeted pressure right to the nipple area. Yeah, so you have to kind of try to see what works for your body and what you need to get a letdown and to respond well to your pump. That was kind of long-winded. Sorry.
That was good though. So when we get our pumps, it all comes at like a set size. So how do moms know whether they're wearing the right flange size?
Okay. So yeah, it usually comes with like 24 millimeter. I feel like that's very standard in the industry. Sometimes it comes with 24 and 28. Again, this has nothing to do with your breast size. And sometimes you don't know until you actually use it. So you want a flange that your nipple does not rub against the little tunnel of it. So Medela calls it a shield. It's also called a flange. This is 24 millimeter. And you don't want too much of your areola to get sucked in. That's the area around your nipple. And you also don't want your nipple itself, when it becomes enlarged, to rub against the tunnel part. So sometimes you don't know until you actually use it. And sometimes different breasts, like your own different breasts, will take different size flanges. And you can buy different sizes through your company that makes your pump, or some like off brands like Maymom or Nini Supply on Amazon.com.
Oh, okay. I also wanted to talk about what issues you can face if you are wearing the wrong flange size.
Okay, so maybe if you don't know that you have the wrong one, you might be experiencing some pain. Now, pumping should not hurt. It can be a little uncomfortable, especially in the beginning of your pumping journey, but it shouldn't actually cause you pain or blisters. If your nipple itself rubs against the tunnel of your flange, sometimes you can get a blister. In extreme cases, that blister could bleed. Please, if your nipples are bleeding, check your flange size, because that shouldn't happen. And then if your nipples and areolas are smaller and your whole areola is getting sucked in, sometimes you can get like red puffiness around your nipple or even blisters around your nipple. So you would want to get a different flange size. And if you're not blistering but you're slightly uncomfortable, you can use a little bit of coconut oil on your areola to just make the gliding happen easier.
How about, let's say you're an exclusive pumper. Can you go back to exclusively nursing?
Some women do choose to do this. I see this most often with women who have babies in the NICU. So I had a NICU baby, but only for 10 days, and then I chose to keep exclusive pumping. But some people who experience longer stays in the hospital with their newborn, for whatever reason their newborn needs to be in the NICU, they've been either tube fed or bottle fed for a while, and the mother has been pumping, but then really does desire and can nurse and have that breastfeeding relationship with their baby afterwards. And it can work naturally, yes. If it's not working as naturally as you'd hoped, see a lactation consultant. A lot of people's insurance cover lactation consultant visits, which you would look into. I know my insurance covers like multiple lactation consultant visits because they can be pricey. So you'd want to meet with a lactation consultant, make sure your baby has a good latch, make sure they don't have a tongue or lip tie, because that's really hard to diagnose yourself. You need a professional to diagnose that. And if there are no other boundaries, then yes, nursing can happen after exclusive pumping.
Okay. So I'm happy you mentioned moms with babies in the NICU. I have a friend whose baby was in the NICU for the first couple of weeks of her life. What would you have recommended for her within the first 24 hours of her baby being taken from her? Pumping
right away. Sometimes that colostrum that comes in, some people get colostrum. That's they say wait until your milk comes in, but you already have milk. It's just different. So colostrum is your very first milk, and it's thick. It can also be sticky. It can be yellow in color, and it is extremely valuable, especially to premature babies. And that is your first milk, and then the milk gets lighter in color and closer to white, and then thinner and whiter, and that's your mature milk. And that's when your breasts really become engorged and you really start producing a higher volume of milk. I'm saying that because right after birth, colostrum can be really hard to get out if you don't have a baby latching onto you. So this time, a month ago actually, this time I wanted to exclusively pump right from the start, and I had to do a lot of hand expression and use a manual pump to get that thicker colostrum out, because my electric pump just wouldn't do it yet. It's not designed for that. I had to look up hand expression videos on YouTube right there in the hospital. I had to look them up and try them, and then I used my Harmony hand pump to get those drops of colostrum out. And I had to do it frequently. I gave birth, and like my son, the first time was taken to the NICU, so I didn't have the opportunity to nurse him as frequently as a baby that would get to stay with the mother and go home with the mother. So I had to get on a pretty strict pumping schedule, which was every 3 hours. Like I said, some people do it every 2 hours, but that starts like from birth.
Yeah.
So if you can do like the skin to skin time, if they're not going to like take your baby right away, I got to do the skin to skin time. Dad got to do the skin to skin time. That is a great time right after that to start pumping or hand expressing.
For moms who are pumping and they're storing and stashing away for later uses, what is a freezer stash supposed to look like?
Okay, so if you've ever seen a picture of people who have an entire chest freezer full of bags of milk, there's a good chance that they are an overproducer. So the typical mother produces anywhere from 20 to 30 ounces of milk per 24 hours per day. And many mothers who have this giant freezer stash produce more than their baby eats, because a baby most likely will not eat more than 30 ounces in 24 hours. So they store a lot of extra milk in their chest freezers. Sometimes they supplement with formula so that they can stretch out the length of time that their baby gets their breast milk. Sometimes like their baby might have an allergy to the milk and they need to store it in the freezer until they get like medically situated with their baby, or their baby outgrows a dairy allergy. They do that a lot. So it's easy to look at these freezer stashes and be like, oh my gosh, I wish that was me. But you never know why that mama has a freezer stash. So the typically producing mother, like I call them just enoughers that make just what their baby needs, all you need is a little extra, like 1 day's worth, what your baby eats in a day in milk in the freezer, just like a little backup stash. So you do not need a chest freezer full of milk.
That's good to know. I know that's one of the insecurities I faced with when I started my nursing or my breastfeeding journey. I was pumping and storing, and then I was feeding, and I did end up with an overproduction. What do you recommend for moms who accidentally become overproducers because they overpumped after nursing?
Okay. Honestly, your best bet is to meet with a lactation consultant so that they can really like do some weighted feeds and see how much your baby is getting, and really talk to them about your individual scenario. I can't speak for all mothers, of course. So meeting with someone one-on-one is my first suggestion. And at about, I'm going to say anywhere from 4 days to 1 week after you give birth, you might experience that initial engorgement, or like your breasts need to be relieved like very, very frequently, in which case you can apply cabbage leaves to the outside of your breast, which help with engorgement, and expressing just enough to feel relief but not to empty the breast. So finding relief for that engorgement without signaling the body to make more, because every time we empty our breast, it signals the body that you need to make more milk. So sometimes just getting the edge off by pumping a little bit to relieve the engorgement will not tell your body to keep making more.
So now when we're storing milk, how long does milk last in the fridge versus the freezer?
This is a highly debated topic, and you'll find mothers that just go by what works for them, and they'll say, oh, I've kept a bottle in the fridge for 8 days and my baby didn't get sick. Should you keep it in the fridge for 8 days? Probably not. I like to tell my moms to look at the Center for Disease Control or the CDC website. Right now they say 4 hours at room temperature, about like 4 to 6 days in the fridge, 6 to 12 months in the freezer, depending on whether you have a freezer that's connected to your fridge and you open it really frequently, or a deep freezer that keeps food colder and less disturbed, and it can last up to a year. But you'll see that the guidelines vary so much. So what I say is the sooner the better. So I like to keep milk at room temperature like 2 hours. I like to keep it in the fridge like 2 days. So I do like the limited or the least amount of time possible, because like why risk it, you know? Like why keep it in the fridge 8 days if it's going to spoil and you're going to either lose it or make your baby sick?
That's true. So how would we go about defrosting and heating the milk when we put them in either bags or bottles?
The best way, although it's a little time intensive, is to take that bag of milk out of your freezer the night before and put it in your fridge overnight. You'll notice that by morning it'll be like a slushie, and you can kind of like mush it with your hands, the bag, and get it to like break up and pour into the bottles for, say, daycare or a child provider for the day. What I do is I'll do that, and then I'll have a large cup of warm water, and I'll put that little bag in the warm water. You do not want to microwave it. Microwaving can actually destroy some of the nutrients of the breast milk and create hot pockets within that breast milk. So your baby could be drinking, it'll be one temperature, and then they could get a pocket of like a really hot temperature of the milk, and I wouldn't want to do that. So don't microwave it. Use warm or hot water if you can.
Okay. And what scenario would be appropriate or okay for us to refreeze milk?
If you have taken out, oh, this is a good one if you experience power loss, like if there's a storm or a power outage, as long as there's ice crystals in your milk, like if it's only half thawed, you can refreeze it. It's still at a temperature that has not reached the danger zone that the food industry talks about. And that's all about temperature. The danger zone is, I don't exactly know what the temperature is. You could look it up. Just look up food safety danger zone. It's a temperature in which the milk might be prone to grow bacteria. So you don't want it to like enter that. That's why you wouldn't want to heat up milk and then put it back in your fridge or back in your freezer. So as long as it still has ice crystals, it means it's still partially frozen, which means it's still at a temperature that it can refreeze without potentially growing bacteria.
I want to move over and bounce back to bottle feeding. So what is paste feeding?
Oh yeah, if you've heard of paste bottle feeding, that's when you hold the bottle more horizontally and less. You'll see people happily feeding babies in pictures with the bottle like this. That's like chugging a beer to a baby. It honestly is. It's very overwhelming for especially a newborn. So paste bottle feeding is holding it more horizontally like this. And then after about every ounce, like pulling it out of the baby's mouth, burping them, giving them a chance to like catch their breath, and then trying it again, looking for baby's cues that they need to catch their breath. And this will also help baby know when she's full, because, you know, think about being really hot and chugging a whole glass of water. You know, it might feel really refreshing at first, but then your stomach is like, whoa, you just put a lot of liquid in me really fast, and you could get sick. Same thing for a baby. If you have 4 ounces of milk and you hold it like this and they drink it in 5 minutes, it might come back up again. So paced bottle feeding helps baby get it in a slower way. They can feel that they're getting full. They can breathe. They can burp. And it's much easier on their digestion and prevents overfeeding.
Now, how often should we be replacing our pump parts?
Okay, so the most important part to replace is the valve. So this is a Spectra valve. It's called a duckbill. Some Spectras have these, but Medellas have these. So they're both valves. That's how your pump sucks. It controls the suck of your pump. It makes the milk come out. So for exclusive pumpers, if you have a valve with a membrane, that's this white part, exclusive pumpers should replace that membrane only, like, as frequently as, like, 2 to 4 weeks. Just this white part. You can order them in packs of, like, a zillion. It should lie very flat against the plastic portion. If it's gapping or hanging open, you know it's time to replace it. People who don't pump exclusively, you can replace this like every 2 months. Duckbill valves are a bit different. You want to look for an opening in the duckbill. If it's torn or hanging wide open, it's time to replace it. Exclusive pumpers should replace this about every month or 2, and pumpers who are not pumping exclusively should replace it maybe every 3 to 4 months. And as for your other parts, I mean, look for wear and tear. Are they getting scratches? Are they condensation or mold getting in your tubing? If you have a backflow protector of your Spectra, like this, you know, is that fitting properly? Is it stretched out? So you just want to keep an eye on your parts, and you might not have to replace it that frequently.
How often should we be washing and sanitizing the pump?
So, well, the pump itself you don't really have to do anything with. But your pump parts, the CDC recommends that you wash after every use. That's a lot of washing. Many mothers employ the fridge trick. If your baby is full term and healthy, you might want to consider the fridge trick, but I encourage moms to do their research and do what they feel comfortable with. The fridge trick is pumping, taking the bottle off, pouring the milk wherever you're going to store it or feed it, putting the bottle back onto your flange, putting the whole thing in the fridge until the next time you need to pump, and using it again. And you can wash it like once or twice a day, as long as it's been in the fridge. You also don't have to rinse it, because that could just introduce bacteria from your spigot, from your tap. You can wipe with those Medela wipes. They make great disinfectant wipes if there are drips of milk on it. But as long as you reattach that bottle right afterwards, it shouldn't get too messy. So I do the fridge trick. I do. I just need to say that the Center for Disease Control recommends completely washing and air drying every single time you pump.
That is a lot of washing and sanitizing.
Yeah, so some mothers have multiple pump sets.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's smart.
You know, they'll have like it's pricey, but they'll use like 3 or 4 different pump sets and then just do a big basin full of wash. Mm-hmm. So you gotta find what works for you.
Very true. How should we be storing our pumps?
In a cool, dry place. And really, I mean, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Your pump itself is not going to do much. I wouldn't put it in your hot car all day, if possible. As far as your pump accessories, I also would not expose them to extreme temperatures. So if it's the middle of winter, I wouldn't keep it in your car. If it's the middle of summer, I wouldn't keep it in your car. If you have like a temperature controlled house or place of work, just take it in with you. Keep it as room temperature as possible and clean. So if you're not going to use it over the weekend, keep it in your pump bag or in a box or in a Rubbermaid so that, you know, a lot of dust and just like airborne stuff doesn't get on it. So keep it like separate from everything else and covered if you're not going to use it for a period of time. I use this every 3 hours, so it sits right here on my dining room table.
So what about when we're pumping on vacation?
What would you like to know about pumping on vacation?
So let's say baby's not with us and they're not drinking the milk that we're pumping. What should we do in a scenario like that?
Okay. So if you are away from baby, it's really important to pump every time that they would eat. So if you're an exclusive pumper, you already have a pumping schedule. So just stick to your pumping schedule. If you nurse at home and your baby usually eats about every 3 hours, you're going to have to pump, even in the night, to not get engorged and painful while you're away from your baby. So yeah, that might interfere with your vacation plans a little bit, but it'll protect your milk supply so that you won't return home and find that your supply has dried up. All the milk that you pump, freeze it wherever you are. Take those freezer bags with you. Freeze it, and then you can fly with it. You can ship it home via FedEx. You can ship it home with a company called Milk Stork.
Oh.
So there's different ways to ship it, and you can also fly with it. You just have to review the TSA guidelines that are online.
What is engorgement?
Yeah, I keep saying engorgement. That's that feeling, if you've ever slept through a middle of the night pump and you wake up and your breasts are like rock hard and leaking and like veiny and super, super unattractive and uncomfortable. And sometimes baby can't even get a good latch and like you can't even get your pump started because they're so hard. That's engorgement. And not only is it painful, it can lead to clogged ducts. And clogged ducts can lead to mastitis. And we're going to talk about both of those. Do you want me to talk about them now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask about them. Because I keep saying things without explaining. So when I talk about clogged ducts, if you've ever watched your milk come out, you'll know that there's multiple holes in the nipple that the milk comes out. Those are connected to little tubes that are connected to alveoli, which are like little grape clusters within your mammary glands that produce milk. So the tubes that lead out your nipple are your ducts, D-U-C-T-S. This is a duct, D-U-C-K, Bill valve. Sorry. I get a lot of questions about ducks, like quack, quack. So you have multiples of them. They can get clogged, and you'll get a hard spot within your breast that might not hurt at first. But if you don't relieve it, like with that pumping session or the next pumping session or the next pumping session or a whole day or 2 days, it can actually cause an infection. And that infection is called mastitis. You can also get mastitis from bacteria that enters the nipple, especially if it's cracked or bleeding. So you need to keep your nipples and like your breast pads, if you leak, like changed and clean, so that you don't get any infections. But if you do have a clogged duct, or they call it plugged duct as well, you can do a number of things to relieve those clogs, like heat and massage before and during pumping, dangle feeding or dangle pumping, where you actually like dangle your breast over your baby or like with the pump connected to it to get gravity to help you out. Some people have one of those silicone pumps called a haka, and they'll put warm Epsom salt in the bottom of it, and sometimes that will draw out the plugged duct. I mean, there's so many things you could do. Take sunflower lectin, which is a pill. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they take multiples of those a day to kind of make the milk like flow better and be a little more viscous, or whatever that word is. My number one advice for clogged ducts, let's see if I can put this baby down, is using a manual pump. I'm glad I brought this over here. It doesn't have a bottle attached, but so say I have a clogged duct right here. I use my manual pump, slow, deep squeezes, and then I use the pads of my fingers on the hard spot, and I push in and towards my nipple as I squeeze, kind of like that, on your breast. And you can get really, really targeted suction by using a hand pump and the massage at the same time. Like, think about like squeezing toothpaste.
Okay.
And sometimes you can do like reverse pressure softening, which is actually pushing it in the opposite direction, which seems like, why would you want to do that? But, okay, think about a movie theater, right? And there's one exit, and there's the fire alarms going off. What happens? Everyone bunches up at the exit, right? So if that's happening in your breast, engorgement, all the milk needs to get out. Reverse pressure, pushing it back, like takes the people away from the door of the movie theater and helps the milk or the people get out one by one by one. It's a weird analogy, but it works in my head.
Yeah, it makes sense. I definitely get that.
Definitely massage in either direction helps that milk get moving.
How is engorgement avoidable?
Frequent pumping, not too frequent, but not skipping pumping sessions. It's really, really attractive to skip your middle of the night pumping session. But if you haven't prepared your body for that, it's going to be really hard on your body. And not only might you get engorged, every time you don't pump, you're telling your body, I don't need that milk. So you could hurt your supply as well.
Okay.
Also, wearing really, really tight underwire bras can also lead to clogged ducts. You want your breasts to be like as loose as possible. They can be supported in a bra, but you don't want those like really highly padded underwire super lift bras. Now's not the time to wear those.
How are clogged ducts avoidable in that sense?
Don't sleep on your stomach. Don't put too much compression or pressure on your breast. Try not to skip pumping sessions or nursing sessions, like if you're away from your baby too long. Keep your breast clean. Sometimes you'll find a little bit of like buildup on the end of your nipples. It's just dried milk. In the shower, when like at the end of a shower, just use your thumb and forefinger and just sort of like brush that right off. It'll come right off. Take sunflower lectin.
When would we take that? Is it just when we have a clogged duct, or can we take it as we are pumping and nursing?
It depends how prone you are to clogged ducts. So I don't get them very often, so I don't have to take it every day. Okay. I have taken it not like a handful of times when I have a very stubborn clogged duct. It's happened to me like twice, two or three times. Some people are so prone to clogged ducts that they take it daily. So you just have to see, how prone you are to getting clogged ducts.
So how, you were mentioning that clogged ducts can sometimes lead to mastitis. How can we avoid that, and how is it treated? Keep
your breasts clean. Keep your nipples clean. Wipe them off after nursing or after pumping as often as you, or as well as you can. Like if you're out, in the grocery store and you have to nurse your baby, you might not be able to like wash your breasts right after, but make sure you have clean, dry nursing pads on. For example, I was wearing a bra just yesterday, and I thought, oh, this bra is like super thick. I don't have to wear nursing pads. Well, I leaked all into the bra, and then as you breastfeeding mothers know, the milk then dries and gets crusty. So that's like a breeding ground for bacteria. So I definitely had to take the bra off, choose a new bra, put breast pads in. You want to treat it almost like an open wound. Like you want to keep it dry, keep like the dressings or breast pads clean and dry. Change them often if you leak really frequently. Mm-hmm. If you have cracked or bleeding nipples, care for that like a wound as well. You can use lanolin. If you are allergic to wool, lanolin's like derived from wool, so you might want to use like a more organic, natural nipple balm. That's what I had to do. So use like a nipple balm, use coconut oil. And if you are experiencing fever and chills, you should get seen by your OB as soon as possible because you might have mastitis. It's like a flu. You get flu-like symptoms. Okay. And the sooner you can treat it, the sooner you can, feel relief and be able to successfully breastfeed, pump, nurse, do what you need to do.
So how do those three affect your supply?
Clogged ducts don't allow milk to come out of that one area of your breast. Mm-hmm. So you might experience a little reduction in supply because parts being blocked. Mm-hmm. Mastitis, some women do experience an overall decrease in that breast after experiencing and being treated for mastitis. And they need to employ techniques like power pumping, frequent pumping just on one breast to try to recover that supply afterwards. Some people do not recover their supply on that breast afterwards. So not only do you risk losing your supply, it's really painful. And, it's an infection. So you want to try to not get mastitis and treat those clogs really, really quickly so they don't develop into mastitis.
And I know that, when I'm nursing, when I'm pumping, I notice that I have one breast that produces less than the other. And we call them slacker boobs. What do you recommend for that?
Well, I'm a positive person, so I like to call the other one your rock star boob. So yeah, some people have a slacker boob and a rock star boob. And it's totally natural. Sometimes people don't even know why it happens. One breast just produces less than the other one. That most success I've seen people have in fixing or helping out a slacker boob is to power pump or do extra pumps or nurse just on that boob. Because it's demand. You're telling that breast, hey, pick it up. We need you to make more milk. And sometimes it will remain uneven, and sometimes you can restore supply to it.
So we are reaching the end of the interview. Do you have any last-minute tips or affirmations for pumping mothers?
Yes, so many. First of all, go to my Instagram page. It's pump_mama, MOMMA_pump. And just seek help. Do your research. Find the tips and tricks to make your pump life easier. Get some cheerleaders. Get people who understand your journey and can encourage you along the way, whether it's your spouse, might not be your spouse. One of my biggest cheerleaders is one of my childless friends who's not even planning on having children. But she's such an encouragement to me. I even email her during my middle of the night pumps. It's like our thing. I have a snack. I do things to look forward to my middle of the night pump. I email her. My mother's a super big cheerleader and a sounding board for me, whether you need to vent or just have someone give you some daily encouragement. Don't quit on a bad day. That's one that you'll hear a lot. We're usually not in the right mindset to make decisions when we're really have heightened emotions. So if you're having like a day where your baby doesn't sleep and you hate pumping, don't make any big decisions that day. Sleep on it. You know, reassess the next day and then take care of yourself. Like if you're like mentally unable to pump anymore and it's like destroying your life, it might be time to change things up. You need a new pump. Do you need a pump that doesn't have tubes coming out of it that you can wear while working or while taking care of a toddler maybe? Do you need to drop a pump to make your schedule a little more free? Do you need to supplement with formula? Do you need to like begin the weaning process and quit pumping altogether? Just get in a state where you don't have heightened emotions to make those decisions. And stay positive. It's hard sometimes, especially with a newborn. But surrounding yourself with positive people, positive accounts online, you know, like a support group. I know we have several local like breastfeeding resource centers around here that have support groups where you can talk to other mothers who've been there before you. So get as much positivity in your life as possible. You know, do you practice mindfulness? Do you practice yoga? Do you have a religious organization that's meaningful to you? Do you do deep breathing? Do you like to, going for a run might be hard while breastfeeding because, you know, you need a lot of support. But like, what self-care do you need? Do you need long baths? Like, take care of yourself. Okay, that's it for now.
Thank you. It was so nice to actually meet you and be able to talk to you about this. I do hope that everybody follows you. You're awesome. You do give daily affirmations, and I look forward to that every single day.
Well, thank you for interviewing me. And everyone watching, thank you for watching, and hopefully you learned something. And if you have any questions remaining, just reach out to me. You can give me a DM on Instagram, or you can email me. That's linked on my Instagram as well, and ask me questions, and I'll help you or I'll point you in the right direction.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.